Today we're going to tell you about vocal processing for live streamed podcasts. So, in today's thing, as I said, live streamed podcasts and processing the vocals for them. So as you may be able to see just behind me, we have Finn here, who also works here at the music studio, who is going to read us some of his book, which I'm sure will be riveting, as always. There we go. It shall be riveting. So, what's going to happen is while he reads, I'm going to apply various effects onto his voice that you would want in order to make your voice clearer and louder, that sort of thing. And I'm going to show you how all of that works within OBS, so it can all happen while you're live streaming without using anything external. So, Finn, if you would like to start reading, and we will be hearing him through the blue snowball microphone, which is probably one of the most widely used and accessible microphones. So, go for it.
Chapter 2, Pheasant Pie.
So, as you can hear right now, he is quite quiet. So, that brings us to the first effects that we're going to bring on. So, what we're using are three VSTs. The first two that we're using, the compressor and equalizer, are from M-Audio. So, let's go with the compressor first. So, these are all of the M-Audio plugins here. So, we're going to go to MCompressor and open the plugin interface. So this is his vocal level around here, which we're going to raise.
A week that last night, after a few beers, hadn't seemed such a big deal,
Ooh,
but today seemed like an insurmountable
drop him down
terror.
a bit. Just so that you can hear what I'm doing.
Relishing the short exposure to the noise of the
we're raising his input level so that he is nearer to this threshold, which is the point at which it starts to roll off his audio. We're going to set the ratio to somewhere around 4, so that if he gets louder, the actual level out of the stream isn't too much louder, so that his soft speaking and loud speaking are around the same level, so there's not a huge difference between the two. We're going to make the knee soft so that the transition to roll off isn't too harsh, and drop the attack to about 1/4 of a millisecond, so you don't get any sharp plosive sounds in there. And the release I would tend to set at about 200, but it doesn't really matter too much. So if I show you it now with the compressor on and off.
At his reflection, he found the window had been lowered. In its place was a large black moustache, surrounded by a weathered face, his dark eyes narrowed.
So as you can hear, a lot louder. So the next effect we're going to add is another VST,
letting out a small cry.
An equalizer.
The mouth below the moustache.
This one also from M-Audio called
too, said the man.
MEqualiser. So
Sebastian made no
turn
response.
him down.
So
this is an RTA, which shows the frequencies of his voice out of the microphone. So if we right click on band 1, we're going to enable this band as a high pass, so as to remove a lot of the unwanted low end, which you'd usually have at around 100 hertz. That's the usual sort of range. Then with the next band, we're going to leave it as peak, as what this calls it, and find his fundamental, which is about there, and raise that just a little bit so as to give his voice some extra warmth. Now, the next thing to find is probably the most important for most podcasts not done in a studio like this one is, which is the room sound. So if I activate 3,
Neil jumped back in and, not bothering with his seatbelt, jammed the 4x4 into gear and lurched off along the road.
600 hertz for this room, you can hear the room resonating. So what you want to do is to drop that down.
Sebastian shook his head. No. You're in for a treat then, and no
So if I switch it on and off, you should be able to hear the change.
Unlikely. And though he opened his mouth for a moment, he closed it again without
and
a
how
word.
the voice sounds a
Neil
lot
cleared his
drier.
throat, which
Now,
suspected
for the
was to
last
disguise
one,
his laughter.
the last main one at
There's a half
least
a
for
point back at
the
the farm if you fancy a
EQ
bite.
is the
I
clarity.
had a sandwich
So
on the train,
if
said
we
Sebastian.
move
I'm fine, thank you.
curve 4 in order
Neil
to
spoke
find
the word
that,
as though it was an entirely new concept to him.
it's just about
You had a
here
sandwich? You had to be
at
travelling for
around
6 miles,
2,000
you had a
hertz for his voice
sandwich?
specifically,
Sebastian shrugged.
so that you get a nice bit of extra
Yes, he said at last.
clarity on his
And the
voice
silence
just there.
spread out again,
And then we
filling
might
his
raise
world
that
with the sounds
output
of the 4x4
just a little
as
bit.
it bounded along the
So,
street. Neither
now
of
that's
them uttered a
two
word as they turned onto
effects
the main
added, so
road
I'm
and
going to
headed
do
towards somewhere
the same
called
thing and
South Moulton.
switch them off and
The
on
journey seemed to
so you
last
can
an
hear the
age.
change
There
that it
wasn't even
makes.
10 minutes. Just as Sebastian thought it would never end and that the loud rattling from below his seat was some defect that would soon drop him through the floor on the
First going to
tarmac,
add on
speeding
the
beneath them.
compressor.
Neil broke the silence. Right then, we were just up here.
And then the
and without bothering
equaliser.
to signal, he jerked the vehicle left off the main road. On the ancient-looking sign opposite, Sebastian read the words, Steepleford.
So that's a good start. But if you can hear
frowning at the
all of his
Is that where we're
S's
going?
and T's
Neil
and all
chuckled
of his
again. Of course it is. Didn't your friend
sibilant
Alison bring you up to where she
sound quite
tell you
harsh,
where
which
you'd
brings
be
us to the
staying?
last plugin
Oh,
that we're
no,
going
she
to
didn't
add,
really tell me anything.
which is a
More coughing
De-Esser.
erupted from the driver's seat.
Specifically,
and
this
Sebastian
plugin
was
is
even more
called
certain it was to
Lisp.
cover Neil's laughter.
Let's go find that
Well,
list.
I guess you'll
There
find
it
out
is.
soon enough. This is our place, he added,
if
turning
we
into a
raise the
driveway
reduction
on the right.
to
Home
around
sweet home.
16, that's
The glare of the
number
headlight
I've
lit up
found
the brickwork of the
tends
house
to
for a
be
moment, which almost brought a smile to Sebastian's
nice
frowning
balance
face.
to
But then it was
lower
gone
those
as Neil
sounds but
swerved the
not leave
4x4
it
round, casting
sounding
light
too
across an expanse
muffled.
of plants and netting before he switched off the engine and
and
darkness
raise the
reclaimed the
sensitivity
view.
somewhat.
Sebastian's frown deepened. That brief glimpse of the
Right, there
outside
we
world
go.
did not look at
And
all
that is
appealing. And
essentially
the plants looked ragged and ugly,
vocal
nothing like the carefully
processing
tended parts
right
of
there.
London.
So
And even
once more,
those were not
I'm going to
really
go
his
through, switch
thing.
off all of the
Neil leapt
plugins,
out and dragged
switch
the
them all
suitcase
back
from
on
the
so
back
you can
before
hear
heading towards the
the
house.
difference it
Sebastian
makes.
tripped over something in the dark, on the dark, uneven path, the root maybe, or some other hazard,
So,
and would have fallen over had he not
compressor.
hit the broad bulk of Neil. Yeah, you'll be wanting to watch your step along here, said Neil.
Equaliser.
Sebastian could almost feel the man's moustache bristling with amusement.
And
Thanks, he
De-Esser.
muttered. Ahead of them came the sound of a handle being turned, and a dull yellow light bathed the path ahead as the door was opened.
And that is
Standing in
essentially
the
the
entrance
three
was a
main
silhouette
things
of a
you need
woman
in order
who
to
called out,
process
her accent the twin of Neil's.
vocals
"You found the
live
place all right
within
then?"
OBS.
Sebastian,
Specifically,
realising his comment was directed at
these
him, replied,
can be added,
yes,
I'm pretty
but
sure,
I didn't
into
really
most
find
live
it, though.
streaming softwares.
I
They
spent
all
evening being a passenger while other
accept
people drove.
these VSTs, which is
come on
good.
inside. I'll fix you up with some of this pheasant
And
pie
the
then.
only other thing,
Pheasant
if we mute him, the last thing to make sure of is if you have anyone coming in externally, is you want to get a separate feed of their microphone, since the settings for the equalizer and the compressor change based on the feed you have in and on the person's vocal and room. So it's really important not to just chuck everything under one, because these work for his voice through that microphone in that room, but if it's a different microphone or a different room or not him speaking, those settings will need to be tweaked in order to work in any of those situations. So thank you for listening and watching. I hope this is helpful, and good luck with your live stream podcasting. All the best.